Good afternoon. My name is Casey Rhodes, and I will be presenting on farm safety with a focus on environmental conditions, routine inspections, surroundings, terrain, and weather. The industry in consideration will be small family operated farms specializing in the growth of corn and soybean. I really wanted to focus on the average farm size here in Michigan, which, according to the Michigan Farm Bureau, as of 2024, was running about 466 acres, which here in my county, that pretty much hits most of the farms. So, there are some farm specific considerations that OSHA does list: remoteness of work site, lack of regulations, and unique environments. Working on a centennial farm, we run into all three of these. Remoteness determines how easily and how quickly aid can arrive. This also means that you're more likely to work alone and may not be able to call for help on your own. Always communicate where you will be, how long you plan to be there, and what work you will be doing. Lack of regulations are seen on smaller farms because OSHA only oversees operations with 10 or more workers. So, in some cases, unsafe situations and hazardous areas will be more prevalent. Unique environments exist in these areas where they may not be seen in industrial settings. You may not be able to control these conditions, but you do need to be aware and adjust to them. General safety guidelines to consider: you need to know the equipment that you are working on and working with. Review the operation manual and obtain proper training. On these farms, you're working with older equipment. The operator's manuals may not be available anymore, but you can look online with the actual make. You can find that make, model, and the year. You may be able to repurchase these manuals to review. You also are probably acquiring this training from old-time farmers, which is great because they have a lot of experience. However, they have also developed those long-time habits that may not fall within safety guidelines. You also need to inspect equipment before each use. The awareness of the machine and your surroundings while operating is key. You also need to dress appropriately for the job ahead, wearing non slip boots, steel toed boots, rubber boots, goggles while using fluids, and gloves. It's very important to keep yourself safe. Here are two tractors that we use regularly that are rather old. I guarantee we do not have that operator's manual anymore. The Alice Chalmers there on the left is currently in the field. It is running soybeans, and here on the right would be our 8010, and that we actually do use to pull the gravity wagons. It currently has a cart, a handmade cart that holds the grain head when we are not using it. So it does change that center of gravity. Have to really adjust the way that you're operating it. I did include an inspection checklist. I will not go over it. It's pretty self explanatory. I just think it's really important to have that visual to be able to check off all of those boxes because there's so many moving parts and pieces that you do need to inspect, and it's hard to remember them all. So it might help if you either follow a checklist or make your own just to guide you with that. Tire inspection is very important because you have to know when to replace these tires. You need to check for signs of damage, burns, bulging, cracking, and heavy wear because all of this can lead to reduced traction and increased blowout and slipping risks. You could have the best weather conditions, but if those tires just are not up to par, you are putting yourself at risk of rollovers. Hydraulic line is also a major area that you need to inspect. It's one of our big problem areas. It's extremely important because they're rather dangerous. Severe burns, tissue damage, infections, and amputations can occur if that fluid penetrates your skin. Limbs can be crushed if pressure releases from the attachments that you're using. Leaks can cause fires and overheating, which can cause equipment damage and personal energy, and these leaks also pose a slip hazard threat. Precautions to keep in mind: you should not use your hands to inspect for leaks. Instead, use a piece of cardboard or another material to look for those drips. Always release that pressure before disconnecting hydraulic lines and avoid working underneath the implements just in case that pressure fully releases and it collapses on top of you. You also need to properly clean equipment and the environment if a leak occurs. This right here is our landau that we use to disc the fields. You can see all of those lines on the picture on the right. There are three different sets of hydraulic lines running to each side. Very complicated, so it's important to know what those lines go to, what they do, and to inspect them to make sure they're in good shape. As you can see on the left, that buildup does accrue pretty quickly. Now, focusing on the weather, hot and dry conditions are exactly what we're facing right now. Dusty driving during that harvest time lowers visibility. The dust accumulation on equipment increases the likelihood of a fire occurring. Dehydration and overheating increase for the operator. Soybeans are also more likely to crack, lowering crop yield. So you have to change the way that you are going to harvest, how you're running those fingers. You do need to regularly clean off equipment to avoid buildup. I did think that this was one of the best ways to avoid fires. However, our neighbor had a combine fire yesterday and he had cleaned his equipment. He had sprayed down his combine that morning, as had his insurance adjuster's husband. And they had a fire as well. So maybe spraying down the equipment is not the best way to avoid it. I don't know. Definitely have to review that. You need to have a safety plan in place if a fire breaks out and ensure that the correct fire extinguishers and PPE are on hand, especially in the cab of tractors so that you can be quick. A hat or sunglasses may also help with glare. Here on the left is a picture of us running those beans, and you can see that dust is just flying. In the middle is a picture of all of those soybeans that have already been lost due to that cracking in this warm weather. And of course, a picture of a combine on fire and just how quick it can get to that point. So, in case of a fire, you need to immediately shut that machine down, exit the cab, and follow the safety plan agreed upon. Use emergency equipment, such as a fire extinguisher, if it's maintainable. If it is not, move a safe distance away and call for emergency services. At that time, you will want to keep that fire from spreading as much as possible. Kick dirt on the fire, maybe even dig a little trench if you can, just to avoid it from spreading to the crops. And ensure you have the proper PPE before inspecting damages afterwards. So this is a picture of that neighbor's combine that burnt yesterday. You can see that damage. Thankfully, it was not a large fire. However, it did just enough where it is not operatable. They did not use that proper PPE. The operator went to lift the shield to put that fire out, and when he lifted it, oxygen entered that chamber, and the fire actually burst towards his face, and he has some minor burns on his face. The farmer also has some burns on his hands from lifting that shield. So make sure you have that proper PPE. Put on gloves. Put on what you need before you inspect. Wet conditions also pose another number of hazards due to flooding, erosion, and standing water. Muddy fields can increase the chances of stuck equipment. So you usually use another piece of equipment to get that other one unstuck. So it increases the chance of runovers and rollovers. Crops can also be affected by wet conditions, increasing mold spore growth and the need of dryer bins. So that means that you may have someone entering those bins and entrapment actually increases. Nutrient loss and soil compaction is also common in that damp weather. So, knowledge of the equipment and your land is imperative. Delay field work until it's safe to do so. Avoid those low spots and define the embankments and ditches. Steer clear and go around them. You should always have a safety plan in place and allow for others to help. If by chance you get buried in the mud like this, make sure that you call for backup. Have someone come out there to help you. It is not a one man job, and it's best to stay safe by having extra hands available. Extreme weather, of course, poses some threats. The strong winds and heavy rains, rollovers and hydroplane plane incidents become more common. Thunderstorms, tornadoes, and snowstorms are dangers farmers may face in Michigan. Lightning strikes may occur, especially if operating in an open field. The height of the tractor, along with its metal components, just creates that path for lightning to travel through. And rubber tires are not enough to ground that tractor with the intense voltage from a lightning strike. They might melt or blow. Stress from heat and drought, floods and high winds can lead to crop loss, of course. Precautions that you want to take would be preparation and management. They're just essential to follow. Monitor the weather and track the forecast. Keep a radio in the cab so that you can communicate with others and so that you can hear those emergency warnings when they come through. Stop the tractor immediately and seek shelter. Avoid parking under isolated structures such as trees. Maybe invest in some proper grounding for those tires. And dress appropriately for all weather conditions to avoid injury. On the left is a tractor that was hit during a tornado, and on the right is a tractor that was melted by a lightning strike. So, very real things that are happening out here. Considerations with the terrain. Physical land features change the way that you operate equipment. It also changes the access that you have to that cultivatable land. Equipment feasibility and crop management. Uneven ground can cause instability, so it is so important to adjust your direction, your speed, the height of those arms and the weight of your load. You have to follow that carrying capacity specifications that are listed for that piece of equipment. Safety always varies depending on your location and the type of machinery that you are using. So you have to be aware of your surroundings and listen to that equipment. You can feel it when it starts to struggle. It's going to speak to you. You have to actually to listen to it. Slow down, adjust when you need to. And of course, avoid operating at night so that your visibility is the best. You have to know that layout of your land. Keep track of those areas of concerns, embankments, fence rows, high ground, low spots, and slopes. Of course, erosion is inevitable on our land. So here are two pictures of that erosion that can occur. To avoid rollovers and runovers, you need to keep the center of gravity within the stability baseline. Operate with attachments on the uphill side, reverse up steep hills, and turn downhill if you start to feel that tractor go. Follow the carrying capacity limits, ensure equipment has a rollover protective structure installed, and use that seatbelt. Avoid parking on a slope or uneven ground. Only start the tractor from the driver's seat. Bypass starting is one of the leading cause of runovers. Do not allow for extra riders, especially children. I believe it's 90% of runovers actually occur in age groups 15 years of age and younger. And of course, always match your speed to conditions and your load. Here's a picture of a rollover bar. It is a foldable one, and I believe it has probably never been up. So that is upon review with our farm. I've been speaking to them, trying to get them to put that rollover bar up and leave it up. And a quick little visual of that center of gravity within that stability baseline and just how quick it can happen. Within a matter of seconds, you can have a rollover. Surrounding considerations, buildings, pedestrians, especially children, power lines, vehicles, wildlife, and other obstacles pose a risk. Know your blind spots and problem areas at the location you're working in. Have a spotter when possible, especially in those tight areas, and limit those distractions. This is actually a picture of our milk house. My grandpa was backing up the combine to the gas tank there, and he hit that structure instead. Thankfully, he did not hit the gas tank. That could have been a major problem, and no one was injured, but he needed a spotter, and he had done it so many times, he realized just how quickly things can go wrong. So, in conclusion, environmental conditions such as climate, terrain, and surroundings play a major role in agricultural safety and productivity. Monitoring the environment and data with a focus on preparation, emergency action, and management strategies will enhance safety. Knowledge of the area, equipment, and overall conditions help to reduce hazards. Remember to start safe so that you can stay safe. And of course, a list of my references here. Thank you for taking the time to listen.